It's all code. If you listen closely, you can hear the numbers. There's a cosmic flowchart that dictates where you can and where you can't go. I've given you the knowledge. I've set you free.
In recent years, the whole idea of interactive entertainment has become more and more popular, with video games often implementing it. But recently, famous UK series Black Mirror took the world by surprise with their newest release, Bandersnatch, an interactive movie where the plot is shaped by viewers' decisions. Now, I was planning on making a video about Black Mirror for a while now, seeing as its whole universe is something that would fit my channel. However, with the release of Bandersnatch, I couldn't help but jump right on it. There are also multiple videos talking about it, but most of them have focused more on explaining the different endings of the film and less about the story itself and what's actually happening to the characters. Before we begin, I strongly suggest that you've watched not only Bandersnatch but the entire Black Mirror series, as it's almost crucial in order to understand the concept of it, and trust me, this is one mind-bending narrative. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter for channel-related posts, and my Instagram if you want to stay in touch with my personal life. Now, let's begin. The premise of Black Mirror Bandersnatch seems fairly simple at first. We take on the role of Stefan Butler, a young programmer who's going through the process of creating a video game called Bandersnatch, based on the fictional novel of the same name by Jerome F. Davis, who slowly descended into madness and ended up brutally murdering his wife. Stefan presents his demo of the game to Colin Ritman, a legendary programmer working for Tuckersoft, a popular video game company. Colin takes on Stefan's game and asks him to finish the game in time for Christmas. Thus unfolds a surreal tale as Stefan struggles to finish Bandersnatch while battling with his own delusions and tries to grasp onto reality. The programmer lives with his father, whom he blames for the death of his mother when he was 5. Stefan's mother died in a train derailment accident while on a visit to her parents' house. She was due to catch an earlier train but was delayed by a young Stefan who was trying to find his favorite toy rabbit that his father had purposely hidden from him. Ever since then, Stefan has resented his father, who makes him attend therapy sessions with psychiatrist Dr. Haynes. Stefan slowly starts to realize that he is not in control of his actions and that a higher power is controlling him. Despite this moment of clarity, Stefan ends up killing his father and finishing the game without any further distractions. But Stefan eventually gets caught for his crime, with Bandersnatch getting pulled from the shelves before it can go on sale. As the episode comes to an end, we are transported to the modern day and told that computer programmer and daughter of Colin, Pearl Ritman, is going to controversially remake Bandersnatch. Pearl appears to be hitting similar problems to Stefan and ends up getting frustrated with the multiple choices presented in the original novel. It may seem like a fairly easy storyline to follow, but stick with me as it's about to go way deeper than that. First of all, the film has multiple endings, each one of them showing different outcomes to Stefan's story. And while going through every different ending and talking about it is fun, I'll be focusing on what the real meaning of Bandersnatch is. Before I begin, I want you to keep in mind that these are all just theories. The first scene presents us with the setting of the movie, 9th of July 1984. Not even 10 seconds in and we already notice something's off. If you're a Black Mirror fan, you would know that the series is set in the near future and that the show's description states that. In fact, the only episode set in the past is San Junipero, which takes place in a simulated reality of 1987. So, theoretically, the storyline is still set in the near future. Now, back to Bandersnatch. I believe it's safe to assume that while Stefan and the story of Bandersnatch do take place in the past, there is something about it that connects it to the future, which is what we'll be discussing. The first major breakthrough in our story is when Stefan realizes that he isn't in control of his actions, and that someone, or something else, is controlling him. He begins screaming for this entity to give him a sign. Then, the viewer is asked to make a decision. I want you to stop for a second and think, where have you seen this logo before? Not the Netflix one, the one on the right. Well, most of you would probably recognize it from the White Bear episode, in which a woman is hunted by a killer with the same logo on his mask, and we'll explain the connection later on in this video, but right now let's talk about how is a symbol from a previous episode relevant here. First of all, the symbol appears in the very first scenes of the movie where Stefan takes the bus. The symbol can be seen on a billboard next to writing that reads "No Future." This logo is symbolic in the show. In Bandersnatch, it is connected to the multiple pathways we have in our lives. The video game is based on a book by Jerome F. Davies. We learned that Davies was a genius, but had a breakdown during his writing process and ended up murdering his wife. If you make certain other choices in the film, you'll see Stefan buying another book about his hero, The Lives of Jerome F. Davies, or see Stefan watch a black and white documentary about the supposed author and his descent into madness. In the documentary, Stefan is told, towards the end of his life, Davies was apparently self-administrating hallucinogens on a daily basis. This, coupled with his attempts to complete the complex, multiple narratives of Bandersnatch, was to prove the final straw. He became obsessed with bizarre symbols and the limitations of his own free will. In his notes, Davies repeatedly sketched the glyph, which to him represented multiple fates, potential realities splitting in two. It was the start of his complete mental collapse. Now, Jerome F. Davies does not exist and is just a fictional story made for the sake of the film, but there's more to it. In the scene where Stefan and Colin have an LSD trip, we see a poster with the name Philip K. Dick on it, which seems to be a big red arrow as to who Davies could be based on. Philip wrote a lot of famous novels about altered state of consciousness, authoritarian governments, drug use, and schizophrenia. He came to the conclusion that, in a certain sense, the world is not entirely real, and there is no way to confirm whether it is truly there. In 1963, he claimed his third wife, Anne Williams, was trying to kill him, and tried to push her off a cliff in a car. He later attempted suicide by driving off the road while she was a passenger. He struggled with his mental health and his amphetamine abuse, and in 1972 attempted suicide with potassium bromide. In 1974, he was visited by a young woman who he said glowed with a pink beam, and afterwards began to suffer from hallucinations, which he referred to as 2374, which sounds familiar to a phone number we're asked to remember in Bandersnatch. Over time, Philip's hallucinations included geometric patterns, Jesus, and ancient Rome. He believed he was living two parallel lives, one as himself and one as Thomas, a Christian persecuted by Romans in the 1st century. He died in 1982 from a stroke. So, now you understand who Jerome F. Davies is based on, but how does everything connect to Stefan and Bandersnatch? Well, let's go back to the symbol we previously mentioned. We now know it was what drove Davies insane, and as the story of Bandersnatch unfolds, Stefan is meant to share the same fate. But why is it happening? Remember I mentioned the White Bear episode from Black Mirror Season 2? In the episode, a woman named Victoria is chased around by a masked individual with the same symbol on his mask. She asks for help, but everyone around her watches and records her while the story unfolds. The plot twist reveals that everything was staged, and that Victoria and her husband abducted and killed a young girl. After being caught, the husband committed suicide in his cell, while Victoria was sentenced to undergo daily psychological punishment at the present facility, which is called White Bear Justice Park. The symbol is relevant in the episode because Victoria's husband had it tattooed on his neck, and the people filming her are symbolic because Victoria filmed her husband as he was carrying out the murder. Do you see the connection to Bandersnatch now? We are literally watching an interactive film about someone ruining his life over an interactive game, and the symbol is relevant to programming multiple pathways, which is a crucial element in our story. My theory is that Stefan isn't in fact in control, and that we are the spectators ruining his life for our own entertainment, perhaps a more advanced version of the White Bear justice system. But is that theory possible, and do we have anything to back it up? Scientifically wise, it is possible in the Black Mirror universe for something like that to happen. We've seen how advanced technology gets in the series, from simulated realities to revolutionary gaming systems. It would be possible to get to the point where someone is tortured by millions of people in an interactive film. Also, Black Mirror's creator Charlie Brooker stated that all Black Mirror episodes are connected to each other, therefore making this theory somewhat possible. Another thing worth mentioning is decisions in the game. If we take a closer look, we'll realize that none of the decisions are actually meant to help Stefan, and that there's no happy ending. In fact, every choice is meant to drive Stefan insane, as he slowly realizes someone else is controlling him. Come on, do you really think choosing different cereal will lead to Stefan being rich and famous? The only way to get the video game completed is by murdering someone. The movie wants us to know that there is no success without sacrificing morals. If the viewers pick the Netflix choice, Stefan will be informed that he is being watched through an entertainment system called Netflix, and while it may seem like we're trying to help Stefan, we're actually bringing him closer and closer to his insanity. And now, the biggest mystery of the movie, Colin Ridman. Think of Colin as the Tyler Durden of Black Mirror. He isn't just a programmer, he knows Stefan and what's happening from the very beginning. After Stefan is offered to work in the Tuckersoft building, the logical choice would be to say yes, but that turns out to be wrong, and Colin informs Stefan and the viewer of that.
Sorry, mate. Wrong path.
In fact, everything Colin does for Stefan is meant to bring him the same fate as Jerome F. Davies. Davies was taking multiple drugs before his death, and what's the first thing Colin does when meeting up with Stefan? He encourages him to take LSD and talks to him about how the government is controlling you. Later in the movie, he also gives Stefan a tape on Jerome F. Davies about how he went crazy and murdered his wife. But what's interesting is that Colin tries to warn Stefan as much as he's trying to trick him. He's constantly trying to warn him about his imprisonment in the game, but that ultimately leads him to his downfall. When the two take LSD, Colin reassures Stefan that jumping off the balcony would have no effect, because they'd still be alive in a different reality. Later in the movie, he also gives Stefan a tape on Jerome F. Davies about how he went crazy and murdered his wife. This playthrough of the film, but in that very moment, in that exact reality, he's trying to trick him. He's constantly trying to warn him about his imprisonment in the game. So why would Stefan be punished? In the White Bear episode, Victoria is led to believe the girl she murdered is her daughter, until the very end it is revealed otherwise. So, seeing how every choice you make leads to someone dying, maybe every ending is a different reality where Stefan did something wrong. This playthrough of the film, but in that very moment, in that exact reality, mother, or maybe that's just meant to make him hate his father and give him reasons to kill him. I can't say for sure because there is no evidence to back this up, but the White Bear episode, Victoria is led to believe the girl she murdered is her daughter, and reboots the game in the modern day for Netflix, but is ultimately led to the same fate as Stefan and Davies when a choice segment pops up on her screen. Stefan did something wrong, which led him to be punished. It is unclear, maybe it relates to his dead mother, or maybe that's just meant to make him hate his father and give him reasons to kill him. I can't say for sure because there is no evidence to back this up, but the ending I thought was the most interesting is when Colin's daughter, years after the incident, reboots the game in the modern day for Netflix, but is ultimately led to the same fate as Stefan and Davies when a choice segment pops up on her screen. So, what do you think? Is Bandersnatch a huge punishment system for Stefan to be tortured? Is it a never-ending cycle of pain and suffering to whoever tries to make the game? I'd love to hear your take on the story in the comments below. I'm also sure there's plenty of stuff I missed in the making of this theory, so please let me know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.